I'll show you now how this crisis management plan document looks like and how to fill it out to be compliant with DORA cybersecurity regulation. Now, this document is important because DORA in its article 14 specifies that you have to create communication plans in case of a crisis, but it's also very useful because it defines upfront who has to do what in case of a crisis, because if a crisis really occurs, it will be much harder to organize roles and responsibilities in your company, so it's much better to define them up front. Okay, I'm showing you now this crisis management plan document from Advisera's DORA Documentation Toolkit. So here on the first page you insert your company logo, company name, general information about the document like the code, the version, date of version, author, approver, confidentiality level. On the second page you typically have change history, so how the document has changed throughout its various versions, a table of contents, and then on the third page you start with the main part of your document. I'll come back to this main part in a minute. Let me first explain you how the document is structured. So let's go through this table of contents. So purpose, scope, and users. This is where you define why does this document exist, what does it describe, what is the scope of its application, so to which parts of your company does it apply to, and also users, so who must read this document. Reference documents, you refer here to a relevant DORA article, but you can also refer to ISO standards like ISO 22301, the business continuity standard. In section 3 you define crisis management team and crisis management support team. So basically who will be in charge of handling the whole crisis situation, so which managers will be included in this crisis management team, and also who will support them. So do we have some administrative staff, some let's say secretaries, or maybe security guards, drivers, couriers, so basically who will support this crisis management team in the case of a crisis. And then command center equipment. Basically command center is a office from which the crisis management team and support team, where they will work. If the primary location is not available, then you have to define where these people will work from. What will be the communication methods? So if the phone lines are dead, if the mobile phones are also not working, then are you going to communicate through let's say couriers or satellite phones or handheld radio stations? So you have to define this here. Sites and transportation. So what are the general sites for the company to recover and how you will transport the people to these sites. Decision making. So in case of a crisis, typically are not going to follow your regular procedures for decision making, because decisions have to be made much more faster. So for example, who will be authorized to make some emergency purchases? Let's say that you need to purchase some equipment, let's say laptops, these kind of things, and then you have to define who is authorized to do this, and let's say what are the new limits for these kind of purchases. Also you have to define who is authorized to speak to, let's say, public media, to government authorities, and so on. Cooperation with authorities. Here you basically define in more detail who is in charge of, let's say, communicating to CSIRT, also to police and to other government authorities. Communicating with interested parties. So you have to list all of your interested parties like shareholders, your clients, your partners, and so on, and define exactly what will be communicated to them and by whom. And finally, validity and document management. So who is the owner of this document, how often this document needs to be approved, and so on. Now let's move on to the main part of the document. So purpose, scope, and users. As you can see, basically this text is already pre-filled here. You have to fill out everything that is written in the square brackets. So these are placeholders. So you insert your company name here. So let's say this is Test Corporated, and you simply move on. Reference documents. So here you see a reference to DORA Article 11 and Article 14. And when you take a look at the relevant comments, you actually see a link to this DORA article, so you can directly see what are directly the requirements from this regulation. And you move on to the next section. So here you should be specifying the members of the crisis management team. And again, you actually have some suggestions here in the comment on who this could be, right? So you basically can think about what would be the most appropriate people. Also, the crisis management team is managed by the crisis manager, and then who the crisis manager should be. Again, here you have in the comments some suggestions on who this might be. Let's say this is the business continuity manager. Typically for larger companies, you will have some professional who will be the crisis manager. For smaller companies, the crisis manager will typically be the CEO. And then who is the deputy of this person? What is the location? Where will this command center be? You have to specify the address here. And similar thing for support team. So who are the members of the support team, and so on. And then you have to specify the equipment needed. So which kind of applications and databases are needed? So what kind of software do they use? Which kind of data files in the electronic forms will be needed? What kind of paper documents will they need? What kind of IT communication equipment, and so on. So basically all these this needs to be specified because all of these things will have to be prepared at this location, at this command center location, prior to a potential incident, because once an incident happens, you won't have time to prepare all of these things. And then you have these communication methods, and of course you specify here what are the ones that are applicable and so on. So this is basically how you go through this document and adapt it for the specific needs of your company. Now, there are several decisions that you have to make for the purpose of this document, including who will be the member of the crisis management team, who will be the crisis manager, what kind of communication methods you need to use in case of a crisis, who are you going to communicate to, and so on. And typically the person who is in charge of this document, and this would be business continuity manager or chief information security officer, so this person needs to propose all of these solutions towards the member of the senior management who is in charge of resilience or cybersecurity, and then together try to find out what is the best solution for the company. Now, of course, it will be a challenge really to take so much time of this senior executive to think through these situations that are highly hypothetical, because this will probably never happen. But nevertheless, this person in charge of this document needs to emphasize why this document is important and how it is useful if really a crisis occurs. Another challenge will be here to present this document once it is approved to all the members of the senior and middle management, and to explain them how it needs to be used in a case of a crisis. Again, because most people do not think this is something that is going to happen. But nevertheless, you should include this kind of a document in your regular training and awareness activities, so that it needs to be a part of this training and awareness plan to make sure that all the relevant people participate in this kind of a training and that everyone really understands the utility of this kind of a document. And of course, there is a challenge of how to write this document, and this is why I'll show you now this document wizard from DORA Documentation Toolkit, which will help you speed up the writing of the document. This is how this DORA Documentation Toolkit application looks like once you log in. So we scroll down here to this folder 9, business continuity. When we open it, you see that the first document here is crisis management plan. So click it to open it. And then you actually enter this wizard, and this wizard here is to help you out speed up the writing of this document. And it does this by asking you these questions and already suggesting these answers here. And basically it suggested these answers here based on the previous documents that I filled out through this wizard. So it remembered all the answers and then suggests the most likely answers to these questions as well. So what is the name of the person to approve this document? John Smith. Okay, let's say this is fine. What is the confidentiality level for this document? It's suggested here confidential, but I don't really like this. I want this to be internal use. Okay, I simply change it and move on to the next step. What is the job title of the person who will perform the role of crisis manager? Let's say I want this now to be CISO. What is the job title of the person who will replace crisis manager? Let's say this is, I don't know, security officer or manager. Move on next. Job title of the person in charge of managing business continuity. Let's say this is business continuity coordinator. Okay. Who is in charge of public relations? I don't know, PR officer. As you can see, you already have suggested here the answers that might be relevant to your company. I don't have to fill out each and every field here, so I move on next. And so once I go through the whole wizard, I simply click download and I'll be able to download the document. Okay, once I open this document from my local disk, you will see actually that this document is very similar to the one I was showing you, but now it's already filled out through the wizard. So it has this logo and the company name, and this information actually came through other documents that I filled out previously. When I scroll down, you see the approver, already this John Smith, confidentiality level, internal use. Already you have this company name in the header, also this confidentiality level. Let's go further. Here you see the company name already came through the wizard, and we go further. And as you can see here, crisis management team is managed by the crisis manager and then CISO. If you remember, this is what I entered through the wizard. So CISO will perform the function of the crisis manager, and also the deputy here is security manager, so also entered through the wizard. So basically this is how this wizard speeds up the writing of the document, because anything that is repetitive is already suggested, and this speeds up the writing of all the documents, not only this one. Hope this was helpful, and to see this crisis management plan for yourself, sign up for a free trial of DORA Documentation Toolkit. Click the link in the description below, and you'll be able to see a free demo of this document, but also of other documents from this toolkit, and you'll also be able to try how this document wizard works. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel not to miss any of my new videos, and I publish videos every week. Thanks for watching.